Good afternoon. My name is Lara Clinton. For my oral presentation, I'll be sharing about the catastrophic apocalyptic hurricane named Maria that hit the beautiful island of Puerto Rico, my home, on September 16, 2017. I'll be discussing about how the Hurricane Maria affected my people the day of and the days to follow, and how the world responded to such a crisis. So it first starts, I'm going to have some pictures in the background that shows the vastness of the hurricane, the destruction, and how people had to accommodate afterwards. So in the month of September, the first storm that came up in the Caribbean was Hurricane Irma, coming as a Category 5. Now Irma did hit the U.S. Virgin Islands and destroyed the islands. Puerto Rico on September 12th is whenever the hurricane hit. Puerto Rico did extend some resources to help the islands. Unfortunately, a few days later, Hurricane Maria came and destroyed the whole island of Puerto Rico. As you can see on the screen, it was huge. So people that lived there were my mom and my brother. In this presentation, I interviewed my mother. I asked her questions like the following. How were you all prepared by the government before the storm? She informed me that everything was as normal. Hurricanes are very common in Puerto Rico, so it wasn't something that was that shocking. They were released early to go ahead and prepare their homes, buy the groceries for a set amount of time. Electricity being out, they prepared and just hunkered down and hope for the best. As she said, it's not like the United States. We can't go and evacuate. We have to do with what we have. I asked her how was it during the storm, and she said it was ridiculously chaotic. There were strong winds. She was scared, anxious, frustrated, just completely over it. I asked her how was it afterwards. She said it was pure chaos. She was shocked at the damage that happened to her island where she grew up. Roots from trees were completely ripped off. Poles everywhere, everything was down. There was no electricity and there was no water. She said, like in this image, she would have to sit in line starting really early in the morning and be in line for 5 to 6 hours just to fill up her tank of gas. Since there was no electricity, the grocery stores were pure chaos. Places like Walmart, she said that there was just no food. It was completely destroyed. The food was rotten. So just buying bare essentials like bread and peanut butter were the things that they were able to buy and survive. She said that it took 6 months for her electricity to come. That's 50% of the island that had no electricity. It took up to 2 years for electricity to arrive for the rest of the island. And even to this day, 3 years later, there's still places that don't have electricity. I asked her, in her opinion, how did the government handle the aftermath, and she stated that they did what they could and they gave from where they didn't have. She said that the governors were weeping, they were screaming to the nations asking for help, and help came. So in response to that, a few months later, there was some corruption that arose from the government, specifically with Ricky Rosselló, which was the governor of Puerto Rico. He and alongside some other people in the office, they actually took money that was allotted to the Puerto Rican people. During this whole time, the Puerto Rican people got really, really upset, and they marched. They literally marched the streets of Puerto Rico to have this man renounced. And then on July 23rd of 2019, the man renounced. During this time that there was chaos, there was also earthquakes happening in Puerto Rico. Hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of earthquakes. So one of the things that happened that was reported on NBC News, it said that the people in the southern part of Puerto Rico, where the earthquakes were destroying Puerto Rico at that point, they discovered a warehouse filled with water, cots, and other unused emergency supplies. This brings to question, what was the government doing? So it's very catastrophic information. And there's so much more. This is just 1% of the intention of what's occurring in Puerto Rico. And I hope that this presentation has brought awareness to some of the degree of devastation that's happening in our U.S. territories. Thank you for listening to my presentation.